Hello, my name's Daniel Ripley from CG Dreams, and today we're going to be creating a texture for the eye purely within Photoshop. Now I've already got my eye made and it's applied to the character, and what I'm going to do is, within my particular application, I'm going to export an EPS file which basically is a UV template, just so that I can be guided as to where I'm creating the iris and the pupil according to the geometry. So that's what I'm going to do right first of all, and this will vary according to what application that you're using, but I'm just going to show you the process anyway. So I'm in this program mode. I'm going to hide the outer shell, which is the reflective shell, and this is what I want to export the EPS file for, and it's this inner one here. Very basic eye we've got here. So we're going to go to the geometry. Was it texture? Yeah, texture, export UV to EPS. Now I've exported that. The next thing is I'm going to go into Photoshop and I'm going to start to work on this. But just before I do this, I just want to take a note of just whereabouts the iris is going to be ending. So as an example here, if I just expand this selection here, the iris is going to be ending around about halfway between here where the edge is here, so it just kind of gives me an idea of where the boundaries are. And if I look on this according to the UV map, we can see where that actually is, and this will help us when we're actually making the UVs, so that's quite helpful. So to start with, we're going to be going straight into Photoshop and we're going to bring in this EPS file, which is our template, and then we're going to start working from there. So the first thing I want to do within Photoshop is bring the EPS file in. In your particular case it may be a different type of file, but for me it's an EPS file and it's the background template. I'm going to go for a 2K map here, so 2048 by 2048, and that should do me quite fine. I'm going to go to the FX and select stroke, and this sets up my UV template ready for me. I have the colour nice and black, and I have the pixel size around about 2, that should be fine. And the idea of this is just so we know exactly where the iris should be and where the pupil should be. And if you just jump to and fro between your application, you should put a mark out where they both should be between the UVs. And as an example here, this is as big as the iris as I want it to be, so I know roughly where it should be on the UVs within the template. So the first thing that we want to do is want to create a brand new layer and make sure the layer is below the other layer that's already there. And I just want to turn off this template just for the minute there. If you cast your eyes down to the bottom left hand side, you can see we've got a foreground and background colour. This is very important in the next stage that we select the correct colour. For the foreground colour I want a grey, quite a light grey, I'd say around about there. It makes a big difference to the outcome that you're going to get. So I'm going to go for a light grey and I'm going to fill it in. And then for the background colour I want to make sure that it's black. The next thing you want to do is you want to go to filter, and within filter you want to go to render and then fibers. Between the two shades of colour that we've selected between the foreground and the background, this is what distinguishes this fiber pattern, and this is going to be an essential part of the overall outlook that we want going to be after. We want to adjust the vibrance and the strength so that we get a nice pattern going on here that's not too sharp. As you can see here, it's got a nice distinguished fiber pattern there, but it's not too harsh. So as an example here, they're quite wide in band. If you take the strength right up, you can see what's happening to that. We want to try and find a nice balance there between the sharpness and between where it falls off more smoother. And for me, I think it's somewhere along the lines of about here. That seems quite nice. Before I go any further, I may want to do a little bit of adjustment to this just to bring out the dark blacks a little bit more. So I'm just going to apply a brightness and contrast just to start with there, and we're going to bring up the contrast a little bit there. That's better. I'm going to apply this, so I'm going to select both of these together and then merge layers. So now that I've got this effect, what I want to do now is I want to spherize it. To spherize it, we go to the filter, we go to distort, and then to polar coordinates. It's already selected on the correct settings for rectangular to polar, and we click on OK. You can see the effect that we've got from this. From here we need to turn back on our reference for our background UV coordinates so that we can know what selection we need to make to encapsulate the iris area. Before we do this, we need some guides. So what I do is I go to the move tool here, and by selecting the move tool, what it does is it selects this center point. We've got a center pivot point here, making sure that in the view we've got snap turned on and snap to guides is turned on, you can see there. And then we just drag these guides from the top of the ruler and from the left. If your rulers are not there, then it's the same place that you turn these rulers on. So show, it should be there. Show guides and rulers, you can see that. Okay, so now that we've got that, we can move on to the next stage. We're going to go to the circle marquee tool, ellipse tool marquee actually, and we just drag roughly in the center, hold the shift key and the control key at the same time, and drag it out to roughly where it should be for the iris. And I know for a fact that for me it's right there. Okay, is it will snap in there. We don't want to be on the move tool when we move that selection. You can see that I move it away and it will snap dead center, and when it does that we know that we've got it exactly where we need it. Now I want to inverse that selection, so Control Shift and I, and then hit the delete key. Now I've done this all while selecting the fibers that we've been making. Control and D deselects everything. I'm going to turn off the guide. The next thing is we need to go to the effects and apply some effects to this. So we're going to go effects, outer glow, actually inner glow in this particular case, and we want to select the color black, and we want to select it to multiply and then start increasing the size. And you notice that the edges are becoming fringed now, like they're burnt. I want to make sure that the opacity is quite high, so the real outer edge is very, very dark, almost black. We'll just increase this to get the outside nice and dark. Next, to give me even more control, I like to apply a gradient overlay. I turn this on, make sure that the styles turn to radial, and again we want to make sure it's multiply. And then we click on here where it says reverse, and with the opacity slider we can blend that outer dark edge a little bit with the inner, only slightly low, we don't want to take too much off. Next, again with the FX, we want to go to a color overlay. This color overlay, we can go for a soft light. Sometimes we need to use a vivid light depending on the contrast of the fibers that we used. But we'll go for this to start with. I'm going to go for a blue. And I feel in this particular case that I could have went for the vivid light, which kind of brings it out a little bit more. We don't want to go too crazy with it alone. Let's just change the type of blue that it is. That's a nice blue. Okay, I quite like that. The next stage is we want to apply a radial blur. So we go to the filter, blur, radial blur, and make sure that it's set to zoom. We only want a very small amount to be applied here. Make sure the quality is on best and then click OK. I want it to do a little bit more than that. That's better. I want to go back to this elliptical marquee tool and select from center again and go right to the outer edge as best or as close as you can get it, and then just move that so it locks into middle place. Control Shift to invert that selection and then hit the delete key, and it gets rid of that blurred edge. The next stage is for us to apply the pupil or make a pupil. So I will create a brand new layer for this, and from the shapes you can see here we've got all the different shapes. Ellipse tool, again roughly from the center, hold the Alt and Shift key and it will drag it out, and you want to drag it out according to the guide. I know where mine should be, so that's fine for me. I know that should have been a black. Make sure that's a black. Now rather than apply a blur to this, what we do instead of that is we go to the FX, we select on an outer glow, black for the color, and we select the blend mode to normal and then start increasing the size, and it just feathers off that edge a little bit. And I think even now, just looking at that again, I maybe like to apply that radial blur again. Yeah, I'm a bit more happier with that. And again, I'm just going to go through that again and just select for the outside and then delete that. Outer edge. Just wanted it to be a little bit more blurred, that's all. And to me it looks a lot more better like that. The next thing I want to do is I want to create another layer, and I'm just going to fill it with a grey colour for now. Bring that layer all the way down to the bottom, and then I'll go to the effects, and then I want to apply a gradient overlay. The gradient overlay for this style I want to be radial, I want to be reversed, and I want to click on this to edit the colour. The first colour I want to be a nice vivid red, and the second colour I want it to be a grey offset yellow. And you'll be surprised how dark you can actually go on this. Just going to adjust this to bring it down a little bit. And you can play with this setting to get it just how you want it. Change the opacity a little bit just to tone it down, and then we're at a nice stage with this now. Again, I'm going to create another layer, and this layer I'm going to be using to create veins. So I'm just going to select the normal paintbrush, a nice deep red, and I'm going to go back to here to select normal. If it's on a different mode, it should be normal anyway. The opacity 100%, and the size in my particular case I want very small, I want 1 pixel. You can choose what's best for you. I'm just going to create these branches of veins, and then just continue to do this all the way around the edges here from the outside until you've gone all the way around the eye. And now I've done that, I like to apply a radial blur to this so it's not so hard. And I won't apply the amount that I applied before, a little bit less than this. So blur, radial blur, and that's perfect. It's just the way I want it there. Now there's other things that you can apply to this to make it look even more realistic, and one of those things is, when we're selecting the iris, is to go to the filter, go to other, and then select high pass. And if you just play with this high pass, you can see the kind of effects that you can get from this. Take it right up, you can see how it changes. Right the way down, you can see what it does there. You can choose what you feel produces the most effect that you're after for yourself. For me, that's absolutely fine. If I just turn that off, you can see that it has changed it quite dramatically. So I'm going to bring it a little bit closer to where I had it. That's good. Also in the effects area, there's other things that you can try which can break it up a little bit, like applying a pattern overlay. As an example here, we've got like a carpet style pattern overlay, and we just increase the scale, and it kind of gives it like blotches look. Select it to a multiply or screen maybe. To see it just coming through there, I quite like that. Finally, the next thing that you want to do is you want to apply it to your model, and then you can adjust the texture according to the model and adjust everything so it's just sitting quite nicely. As an example there, you may find that the outer edge of the iris here is a little bit hard. So you could go in there and add an effect like an outer glow, just as like we did before. You can select the black, and select it to normal, and then just increase that size, and it just blurs off the edge. It's better to do that than it is to go in there and apply a permanent blur, because this way you can go ahead and adjust it accordingly how you want it. Just to finish things off, just to give you the final effect of this, what you can also do is you can apply a pre-baked in reflection if you wanted to. So here's how you do it. The first thing you do is you want to go to your library and you want to apply a image which you'd like to be part of the reflection. And I've got an image here, that should be fine for that. Just going to drag and drop it in there holding the shift key, and it should center it. It should. Make sure that it's large enough. Hit enter. And just want to make sure that it covers the area quite nicely, mainly the iris area. And then what I like to do with this is I like to apply a screen effect. You can see the blend type, and then what you can do is you can just change that opacity down, and it becomes part of the shadow, or shall I say the reflection. You don't want to do it too heavy because you can lose a bit of the contrast of your image, but just enough for there to be something coming through. I'm going to right click and rasterize that level. I'm going to move the reflection around a little bit until I've got something that I like. I think that's quite nice. And then I like to go to the rubber tool, the eraser, and then I start erasing out all the area that I don't want, primarily all around the outside, even as far as the edge of the black of the iris. So I'm just going to erase this, and it gives back the contrast. Let's increase this value a little bit, get through it a bit quicker. So we get our contrast back, and I just want to go and feather the edges of the darker areas of the iris. If I just change the opacity now, you can see that we've actually got a reflection applied to that. And then of course a brand new layer. I can add a hot spot to this, and I want the hot spot to be white. Apply it around about there. Go to the effects, select outer glow. We want that to be nice white, and then we can increase the size of that, and it gives it that glowed effect. And of course we can change that to screen, which is more fitting for this, and even duplicate that level, that layer, and maybe move that over as a secondary highlight. And change its opacity. That's if you wanted to apply it like that, and of course it's something that you can now save as their layers and name all the layers, unlike what I've done here, so that you can go back and change these and adjust these accordingly so it fits in with your project that you're working on. So for me, I don't particularly need any highlights in there, so I would take them off. So the next thing I'll do, I'm going to apply it to my model. As a final thing that I always like to do with this is I like to apply some hue to the eye according to what it's going to be like as the final. So to do this, I select the iris area like I have here, hold the Alt key and go to this little tiny drop down menu and then select merge down. What it does is it creates a merged version, but it allows you to keep the original. And then with this merged version we can do some editing to it to be our final texture. So you can see here that it's made a copy there. I like to go to the paintbrush hue, and when you've got blue eyes you sometimes have got a little hint of green in there. So I like to apply a little bit of green. It's a little bit heavy there, so the opacity I'll bring right down. Maybe even select a different tone of blue here and there. For that we can go to colour. Just give it a little bit of variation basically. Increase that opacity a little bit so we can really see what we're doing here. That's better. I'm just going to hop over into my rendering application. It's asking me to update the texture that I've applied. So a little bit of hue change there in the middle. And what I want to do is I want to make sure that I've got this eye texture set up, because I haven't really done anything to it yet, and it needs to be the correct gamma. So I'm going to divide that by 2.2, and it should give me the depth that I need and the colour. Just to show you there that if I wanted to include that hot spot that I added in there. Just adds to that reflection a little bit. Then what you can do from there is you can just adjust things accordingly to how you think they should be. And there we go, we've made our own eye texture within Photoshop. And we can just dart to and fro between Photoshop just to get it how exactly we want for the tone, the colour, etc. And the good thing is we can go back to our original file anytime we want, providing we save out the Photoshop file, and we can alter this. We can go back and change how the colour is overlaid, the type of colour that it is, and the vibrance. So you can see I'm just changing that colour. And, you can see how much it changes it just by doing that. That's quite a nice blue. A little bit more realistic, I would say. Remember, all these settings that I've been playing with, you can go in there anytime and adjust these. As an example, the outside dark area here, that can be adjusted. I feel that's a little bit too hard. See here how easy it is to adjust these things. And you just keep on adjusting them until you're finally happy with the results that you've got. And what you see here is just a very basic render of the eye. There's no other maps applied to it, like how to control the reflection and things like that, or any subsurface scattering. So of course, when you add those other material settings, you can make the eye look very, very realistic. But the main point here is what you can see is you can see the iris texture there and the overall texture for the eye that was completely created within Photoshop. So get creative, have fun, and try it out for yourself and see what it produces for you, and give us some feedback, and give us the thumbs up if you like it. Thanks a lot. Bye for now.